Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive Home on IC in Christ Radio, your source for news and entertainment. You can also find us on television two different ways. I didn't tell Aaron about this. You're on local Alabama television, channel 182 on Charter Communications. You're on worldwide television with Abundant TV, which is found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Aaron is with me. His name is Aaron Swain, and he is with us from Promised Land. Is that right? Promised Land Quartet. It's so good to
Yes,
have you
ma'am.
on the show today. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, we're tickled death to have you. Been listening to your music, and it sounds really good. So, quartet, we don't hear that much anymore. What's a quartet?
Quartet is usually four vocalists singing four different parts, hopefully in harmony.
And I'm laughing because I actually grew up in the quartet world. I'm a lot older than you are. But it's also known as Southern gospel.
Yes, ma'am. That
Mhm.
is our style of music.
Yeah. Do you have other sounds as well, country? Any of the other sounds?
If we had another sound, it would be more on the contemporary side of Christian music, but it's definitely Southern gospel based primarily.
Yeah, that sounds good. So let's talk about the group. And what part do you play there?
I sing the baritone.
I
Um,
somehow thought you did. I heard that in your voice.
yep, that's me. Sing the barely a tone part. But the group was founded in January of 2000, so this is almost 23 years that the group's been on the road. And when they started, it was originally just going to be one weekend a month. The guys had come from other groups and had traveled some, and they just kind of wanted to, still do something every once in a while, but they were kind of done with the whole traveling thing. But
Can't hear you. Can't hear you. Mm-mm. Can't hear you. Yeah, you're good on this end. Can't hear you. Yeah, it looks like we've got Aaron with us right now. Sounds like we're having some sound issues on his end. So I'm pretty sure he's going to figure that out. My name is Donna Fiesel, and I'm your host of Afternoon Drive. I want to talk about one of our sponsors real quick, and that is Twin City Used Car Sales. They're located in Fort Payne as well as in Gadsden, Alabama. Guys, been in business a really long time. This is where we buy all of our vehicles. You want to buy and do business with folks who care about your community, and that's definitely Bobby Ledbetter at Twin City Used Car Sales. Also, check out my friends at the Cattle Stampede Steakhouse. Cattle Stampede Steakhouse is located in Fort Payne, Alabama, just off of the interstate. So go ahead and check them out. You'll be glad you did. They've got the buffet back. I'm gonna tell you what, it's not a buffet, it's buffets. Absolutely. So you got to check that out. Phil and I were actually there last week, and great food, and everything tastes farm fresh, so it's all fresh out there to you, and you'll love their steaks. Their steaks are absolutely mouth watering. I like salads and I like chicken, so they had all kinds of great things going on there. Aaron, do you get it to work?
I think so.
There we go.
Technology loves us again for about 5 minutes. Hopefully. So let's see.
But that's okay. You and I think quick on our feet, so we went on ahead and started talking about a couple of our
Well,
sponsors. If you're coming
yes,
through
and you made
Alabama,
me hungry.
oh, yeah. Those are really good folks too, and they really do care about the community. So that's really, when COVID hit, Aaron, we had some folks who were, lost their jobs,
Mhm.
and food was getting kind of scarce and hard to come by. And so the guy who owns the Twin City Used Car Sales, Bobby Ledbetter, and Miles Smith, who owns the Cattle Stampede Steakhouse, got together and formed a group. And so we just all got out there and started feeding folks free of charge.
That is awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. So you take something bad, make something good out of it. So
Absolutely.
we encourage folks to go ahead and shop with them, folks who actually care about your community. So I have Aaron Swain with me right now, and he's with Promised Land Quartet. And so we were talking about what a quartet is. And, a lot of folks don't know what a quartet is. Some of the younger generations who grew up and
Right.
hearing contemporary and that kind of thing, but we love it all here at the station. So talk to us about your music, some of the songs you guys have recorded.
Well, like I said, the group's been on the road about 23 years, almost 23 years, and so there's a whole lot of music that's been recorded over that time. And one song that really kind of put them on the map, so to say, is a song called "Brand New Heart," and it's a really upbeat little song, talking about the day that the Lord saves you. He gives you a brand new heart, and you just can't help but tell everybody about what He's done for you. And songs like that. And more recently, we recorded a song that we released to radio and actually did fairly well for us, called "I Love That Music." Just talking about, we love this music that we get to sing. We love the Lord and we love His music. And it's, again, really catchy. That's kind of the point of the song. And I love that music, and the joy of the Lord can sometimes be expressed through music, and that's what's living inside us, the day that we get saved. And then most recently, we just released out to radio a song called "Don't Let Me Miss the Glory," and there's kind of a special story behind that for our lead singer, Gene Hammond. Back in October 2020, we all got COVID at the same time, just kind of how it went, and it affected him particularly badly. He was sick for about 22 days and in and out of the hospital. And at one point, he was just so weak that he couldn't hardly get out of his recliner. And he was just praying, because he thought that this was just about over for him. And he just prayed, "Lord, if you're not done with me yet, show me some way." So he pulled up gospel music on YouTube like it likes to do. And the first song that came up was a song called "Don't Let Me Miss the Glory," that was recorded by a guy named Gordon Moat, who, those that don't know, and if they've watched the Gaither videos, he's a blind piano player. And it's a song that just talks about, even in all the storms of life and all the craziness that's going on, don't, it's just a prayer to God to not let us miss the glory that's shown in His creation. And if you think about it, this guy has been blind from birth and is singing about this, and it's just such a powerful message. And that let Gene know that God wasn't done with him. And as soon as he was well enough, we were actually in the middle of the recording process for a new CD. And he said, "Guys, we've got to get this song recorded." And so we did. And it's a song that just speaks to people everywhere we go, because especially over the past few years, just all the horrible stuff that's gone on and the tough times people have gone through, just being reminded of the glory of God that's shown in everything that we see around us that He's created. It's just a really timely reminder, and really uplifts people.
I think so too. What was meant for harm, I think, is, and a lot of bad things came out of COVID, but I'm also noticing this regeneration of our thoughts,
Oh,
and I'm
absolutely.
seeing more positive stuff coming out of it. What do you see on your end?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. People are just, they're tired of having to look down all the time.
Mhm.
And so now that it's kind of, starting to come out of it, people are starting to, try to find other things to uplift themselves. And we actually started a concert series called the Joy, Joy, Joy concerts, where we'd bring in special guest artists, other gospel groups, and just make it an evening of nothing but uplifting and pointing our eyes towards heaven, from where comes our help. And people have really responded to that too, and they tend to, even weeks later, will send us messages about how much they were uplifted and encouraged by that, and how they've carried that spirit of positivity and the joy of the Lord into their daily lives from that point forward. And people are really receptive to that and just looking for a reason to be uplifted. And that, that's kind of a positive consequence of all the craziness that we've had to go through,
Oh,
if
I
there
think
is
so
one.
too. Sometimes we have to kind of go through these things to help us appreciate what we had.
Absolutely.
And then when we appreciate it, we're back full force and, ready to make up for lost time.
Oh yeah, no doubt.
I noticed that because, and I'm not, well, I was never really good at the doing the church. It's with Zoom. I
Right.
couldn't do it because my attention span is about like that anyway. And so we would be
Yeah.
sitting in the recliner looking at the church service, and I'd look around the room and I'd go, "There's a spider web." I mean, I was just, stuff like that. It wasn't meant for me. Some folks, I think so. But I do think Zoom brought some good things. I mean, folks who hadn't been going to church are actually watching.
Right.
And I
Right.
think that's,
Absolutely.
yeah, for folks who just really don't want to go to church for some reason or another. But I think some of those folks are kind of venturing out that maybe church is better than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah. And hopefully so. That's kind of um, I guess a risk that you take when you make it that widely available, especially, you've had to shut down stuff completely in person.
Uh-huh.
Hopefully you reach somebody that doesn't usually go to church that was just kind of, scrolling through Facebook or whatever and came across it. But hopefully it didn't discourage the people that usually go there in person to kind of become complacent and,
Well,
church in the recliner.
we go to a cowboy church, and so
Okay. There you go.
oh, I love the cowboy churches. So, and I want to tell you a thing about, people, and everybody likes luxury. You want to be, warm when it's cold outside, and you want to cool off a
Right.
little bit when it's like this Alabama humidity when it's, but people never quit going to that church. And so
That's
we're actually
awesome.
having the church in a barn right now while we have a building being constructed. Nobody complains. I mean, really, you're sitting on stuff that's not comfortable and it's hot outside, Alabama humidity. Nobody
Mm,
complains. Isn't that something?
that is something.
Yeah.
That's awesome, though.
Now, where are you guys based out of?
We're based out of the Shenandoah Valley of Virginia. I don't know if you've ever been up there, but there's
I love it.
several caverns up there through I-81, and we're actually based out of Luray. The Luray Caverns are right there. So that's where we're based out of, but we're scattered all over the state. Gene, our lead singer, that's where the bus parks at his house in Luray. Our
Uh,
tenor singer, Joey Wilson's from up in Warrenton, which is up towards D.C. I live outside of Lynchburg, Virginia, which is right there in the center of the state, kind of, and where Liberty University is, if you
mhm.
know where that is. And then our bass singer, the crazy nut, he's from Piedmont, South Carolina, and drives all that way every week to go hop on our
Wow.
bus. That's like 7 hours one way.
Oh, yeah. We lived in Charlotte, North Carolina for a while. And so family lives in Alabama. So we used to go through that way
Okay,
to visit relatives. So, yeah, wow. It's a big world. It's a small world at the same time. The thing
right,
I like that I learned from COVID is that we are in a small world.
absolutely.
We really are. We all think, oh, it's this big, gigantic world out there. But a lot of things kind of happen to kind of, find out that we weren't too big for our britches.
Right. Yeah, there you go. And yet another positive thing that came out of all this. See, we're just finding all the positives in this. That's which is a good thing.
So, are you guys back on the circuit again? You as busy as you were
We are.
before?
We are. Yeah, well, it's kind of getting that way. It's like everybody else, it's kind of slowly been getting back to what it used to be. Like I mentioned, when they first started, they were only wanting to do 1 weekend a month, but then 6 months later, the rest is history. And so our typical schedule is about 120, 130 dates a year.
Mhm.
But in 2020, when all the COVID stuff happened, we did, I think it was 25. So,
That sounds like a
yeah,
lot to what I've heard, a lot of folks talk about. So,
right. Yeah. And so we were, thankfully it's starting to get back to what it used to be. And there's several of these groups out here that didn't make it through the pandemic. They just had to had to close their doors, so to speak, and not travel anymore. But, you know, God saw fit to tell us he wasn't done with us yet. So here we are still out here, thankfully.
I still say what was meant for the harm is actually wound up being good for folks. It really is.
Amen.
Because I'm going to tell you what, I appreciate it much more than I did. I think we took things for granted.
We did. Absolutely.
Nothing like a good shake from Papa God to show us what we need and
Yeah.
what
And a
we need.
shake it was. Absolutely.
So, how far out do you guys travel?
We're mostly up and down the East Coast, in Virginia, obviously, in West Virginia, Maryland, venture into Ohio sometimes, and then down into the Carolinas. But we have been up to Canada and New York. A couple of years ago, we went over to Ireland, Northern Ireland, and we were actually supposed to go back in March of 2020, and obviously that didn't happen because of the pandemic. But we're about to, in January, take a tour out to Texas, and we're going to sweep down through Mississippi, and I think Alabama is being worked on as well, and then out into Texas and back. So that's going to be a huge expansion of our horizons because none of us, I don't think, have ever been to any of those states. So, but yeah, typically just, up and down the East Coast is kind of our typical area.
Well, I'll tell you what, we'll treat you right when you come to Alabama. We'll even feed you.
All
You know,
righty.
the answer to everything is food here.
No, that's our kind of people.
Well, I think you'll like it. So if you come up to North Alabama, I'd love to have you in the studio. I mean, I
Yeah,
think
we might have to work on that. Yeah.
oh yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean, travel is, and you get to see so many folks. What's the common thing you're hearing from folks though since the pandemic? Are they getting out now like they were before? I know around here people do. We're tickled death to be turned loose.
Oh yeah, yeah. Especially, towards the second half of last year and into this year, people are starting to get out more. Obviously, there were a lot of them that were unsure about going out too much, and a lot of them, the dates that we did get to do in 2020, they were saying this is the first time I've been out in such and such months, but I just felt like it was time when I saw you guys are going to be at my church. And so, but then after that, they started to be more comfortable to go out again after coming to that concert, which, praise the Lord that they were able to get out from under that spirit of fear. But yeah, people are definitely, they're tired of being cooped up.
I know we are. We have an annual event here in Geraldine, Alabama. This is where we're located. Had you ever heard of Geraldine, by the way? Geraldine, Alabama?
I think in connection to the music, I think I have.
Yeah, you probably did. There's quite a number of groups are through this area, and so we have this annual event, and it's always the second Saturday of May, beginning at 4 o'clock, and we call it Music in the Park, Music in the Geraldine Park. And so that first year, it was the year after COVID, and so our mayor, Chuck Abels, is an awesome guy, and so I was venting out with him, and I said, "What if nobody shows up?" And he said, I think they're going to show up. He said, because people are so tired of being cooped in, and it's an outside event. So you could actually go outside and not have to worry about wearing a mask and that kind of thing. I'm glad we did it. I mean, it was just, it kind of brought everybody together because we're human beings and we're Christians and we're just social beings. We like hugging necks and stuff.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And I think that's why, the Bible talks about forsake not the assembling of yourselves together, because community, just on a human level, is so important. And, like we talked about earlier, having the live stream church is such a great resource for people that, weren't able to get out during the pandemic and still aren't able to get out. But there's just nothing that can quite substitute the in-person, just being around each other. And that goes for church, that goes for just, family, socializing, stuff like that event that you talked about. And what we found is just if you give people the opportunity to be around each other coming out of this pandemic, they're going to take it, especially now.
They're going to grab it. I mentioned Geraldine, Alabama to you. I'll tell you one person who is from this area that everybody knows, and that's Vestal Goodman.
Yeah.
Goodness. So
that's where I heard about it. That's exactly where
it had to be. It had, and of course, food is associated with her. She was known here for the coconut cakes, the homemade coconut cakes. So
I've heard.
And to get together there, that was, and her sister and my mother were friends, and and then of course the Happy Goodmans, and then also there was a song back in the 1960s before you were born, I'm pretty sure. And it was called I Love You More Today Than Yesterday, but Not As Much As Tomorrow. And Pat Upton is from this area, and he's actually the person who made that really go big. Of course, that was on American Bandstand, and you just look it up. and you'll say that
Oh
dude,
yeah. Oh,
you're
I know what the song is. I'm kind of an old soul when it comes to music,
me
so
too.
so yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about. Man, small world though.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. So we got a couple of good things going on here. Let's talk to folks about hope because during the pandemic, some of the, folks were getting depressed. Suicide rate went up. And but we're beginning to feel it back again. It's happening. But how can we talk with people about not being depressed? What's the one thing you would recommend people do or not do to not be depressed?
What I'd recommend them to do um, is if you feel like that you need to seek help, as far as talking to somebody, absolutely do it. You can love Jesus and see a counselor, but there's nothing wrong with that. In conjunction with that, though, I would encourage them to find a Christian counselor because that way you know that you're getting the right solution to what your problems are. And even more importantly than that, like we talked about, community is so important. So if you can find a good church locally to you where people will just love on you, do that. Isolating yourself, and I've been through this myself personally. I had some health struggles a couple years ago, and it was easy to just isolate myself and not want to be around people because of the stuff I was going through. And on some level, I was just embarrassed, and it was hard to be around people. But I found that when I forced myself to find community and just be around people and let them love on me, that helped me more than anything with the depression I was going through. And then I would also, I always like to say, music will preach a sermon to people that would never set foot to hear somebody just straight up preach. And so find good Christian music to listen to because, and especially with the music that we sing and even contemporary music, it's always so much of it is so uplifting. And even when it talks about the struggles that we go through in life, it points to the one that's in control of it all, the one that's right for whatever's wrong with your life, and that's Jesus Christ. And getting a steady diet of that music and community, both of those are such an effective um, tool to combat that depression and the anxiety and the feelings of loneliness that so many of us have gone through during this time of the pandemic. Um, we have a song, and actually it released right before the pandemic started. That's just God's timing. It's a project called There's Always Hope. And the title song of that talks about, I believe for every valley, there's a mountain, and for every storm, the sun's going to shine again. And it just talks about the hope that's found in Jesus Christ. And so if you can find songs like that, especially on like Apple Music or Spotify or something like that, taking those words and hiding them in your heart, like the Bible talks about, that will heal you so quickly you won't believe it.
Well, so a lot of folks will say, well, turn the TV off, quit listening to the news. How can you have some kind of a balance? Because I'm in the business and even I don't want to hear it all the time. I mean, it's just like, that's enough. That's enough. And I think that also there's a spin on it, and I think part of that spin is to depress people and have them where they
Oh
just want to
yeah,
stay in my house all the time. How can you find out? I mean, you got to know what's going on in the world, but there has to be a balance. Do you agree with that?
I do. I do. I find that Christian radio stations will usually have some kind of news blurb on there, but they don't focus on it. It's just, the top stories of the day, kind of just tell you what's going on and then move on. If you can find a news source like that, I mean, it just goes in hand with the music thing I was just talking about. But, find something that's just going to give it to you really quickly and then move on from it and not focus on it, because a whole lot of the news that's going on now is bad just by the nature of it. There's not a whole lot of good stuff going on right now, but that would be the easiest way that I would say to find a balance is just finding a good radio station or Christian TV station or something like that that will take maybe 5 minutes every couple hours to talk about what's going on and then just
That's
move
all you
on from
need.
it.
That's all you need. You don't
Exactly.
even need that much. Do it 5 minutes a day. I promise
Yeah.
that won't even be overloaded at all. But you know something? There's lots of good stuff going on. You just have to look for it because they don't want to
Right.
report that. So lots of really, really great people out there. Like I just mentioned a couple of my sponsors there. I mean, these guys fed all of these people, thousands of people, and didn't charge for it at all. They just did it out of the goodness of their heart. And there's lots of stories that we're hearing about that. You just
Yeah,
have to
there you
find
go. Yeah, I mean, and like you said, you're not going to find that on the mainstream news for whatever reason, I guess, because that doesn't draw
doesn't
people
matter.
in, you know?
Follow the money and you'll know what I'm talking about. But
Right.
yeah, just look for the good stuff because there's plenty of it out there. You know, one thing that came out
Absolutely.
of this pandemic is people now are gardening more than ever. And I think that is an awesome thing. I used to hold a corporate job with GTE back in the day, back a long time ago. And so I would actually go home and I loved digging in dirt. And because it was just something about going back to the earth again. And you would get that off your mind, all the corporate stuff. And I would imagine working corporate now is even worse than it was back in that day.
Oh, I'm sure.
Mm, yeah, lots of stuff going on there. So yeah, just getting back to the earth again, back to what God created. There's
Oh,
something
yeah.
about flowers. As a matter of fact, I ran into one of my friends who was in the radio business and she retired, gave it up. And I said, well, what are you doing now? And she seemed very happy. And now she was working for a country station. It wasn't a Christian one like this one. So I said, you sure do seem happy. I mean, she was actually smiling and she said, I'm with a gardening club. I would have never thought I would think that out of her. And I'm a gardening club. Really? So just
Well, I mean, it gets you outside into that vitamin D and all that.
there
That'll
you go.
that'll fix you up. Yeah.
Yeah, and you're not being cooped up. We have almost 2 minutes left in this segment. Time flies when you're having fun.
Oh, yeah.
How can folks find more about you guys and how can they find your music?
Yeah, promiselandquartet.com is our website. It has all of our music on there. We have available for CDs, and you can actually purchase digital downloads of our music on there as well. We're also on all the major stuff: Apple Music, Spotify, YouTube Music, Amazon, all that. You can also find us on Facebook at the Promised Land Quartet. That's our Facebook page. That's the fastest way to keep up with what's going on with us, where we're going to be. Hopefully, we'll be near you at some point. You can also find us. There's an app called Bands in Town that will notify you whenever we get close by to your area. So all those resources, just a good way to find us. It's Promised Land Quartet.
There you go. Thank you again so much for being on the show today. It's been awesome. And thank you for
Oh,
the good
thank you.
news. We love good news here.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure.
Absolutely. Okay, folks, thank you so much for watching Afternoon Drive Home on IC Radio in the town of Geraldine, Alabama. We're putting Geraldine, Alabama on the map right now. But thank
There
you
you
so much
go.
for watching. There you go. Channel 182, and that's local to North Alabama. You can find us also on worldwide, and that's through Abundance TV, found on Roku, Apple TV, and Amazon Fire. Thank you again so much for watching. We appreciate you. And also, we appreciate you for being on the show with us again today. Okay, folks, again, thank you, and we look forward to seeing you on the next lineup.